Singing Dutchman Productions. Hello and welcome to Doug's Front Porch, a podcast where I get to sit down with friends old and new and have honest conversations. Today, I'm so happy to welcome one of my oldest friends to the front porch, Brad Weidenhammer. Welcome to the podcast, and thanks so much for coming on.
Hey, Doug. Thanks for having me on the front porch. Such a lovely evening on the porch.
Yeah, as we're recording this, we're having a major snowstorm here in central Pennsylvania, expected over a foot of snow. But that's raging outside, and I'm okay here in the warm basement. Hopefully, it's nice there in Virginia where you are, Brad.
Hey, we're getting the rain version of your storm, so it's nice and dreary.
Sounds good. So, a little bit of background for the listeners. I have known Brad since, well, our parents have pictures of us as babies together. His mom and my mom were best friends in high school and then stayed friends. And then we kind of grew up knowing each other well because of our parents' friendships. Went to elementary school, middle school, high school, were good friends in high school. And so, like I said at the beginning, one of my oldest friends that I have, actually. So it's so cool to have you here today, Brad.
Yeah, I think unless you get your dad on here, I might be the person who's probably known you the longest of any of your guests.
I think you're right, and I'll tell you, I think the chances are pretty slim to none to getting my dad on here, but you never know, I guess. So I want to start with this. So we grew up together. We went to high school together. Small town, rural, southeastern Pennsylvania, strong Pennsylvania Dutch country. You were involved in a lot of things in school, like I was, music, sports, and then we get time to graduate, and we decide what direction we're all going to go, and you decide that you're not just going to go down the road to Kutztown University or Penn State, but you're going to go pretty far, and you decide to go all the way to Georgia Tech. Talk a little bit about that. What was that process like for you to decide that you were looking at schools so many states away from where you had grown up?
Yeah, so um, I mean, a couple different paths to get there. Um, so somehow when I was young, I kind of just always knew I wanted to be an engineer. Um, I think I can remember a light bulb moment. Family vacation. We used to vacation in Ocean City, Maryland. Driving there through Delaware, they were building this new big bridge, a big cable stayed bridge. Engineering marvel. So I remember passing that and being like, "Oh man, I want to build bridges." So that was like the first seed of, "Hey, I want to be an engineer." So then the process is, you look at engineering schools, like, hey, Georgia Tech is like the best engineering school. I should just go there. Again, rural, small town Pennsylvania, not really knowing what that really means. Um, and then I think, another part of it is I think I've always been somewhat of a contrarian that, engineers in Pennsylvania, well, they're supposed to go to Penn State or Drexel, these other places, but I always kind of did things a little different. So I'm like, you know what? I could go to those places, or I could go to Georgia Tech, the best engineering school that's out there. So, I applied, and even looking back, you know, I feel so grateful I got in there, but I did. I got into some of the other schools, but Georgia Tech's just always I wanted to go. So, 18-year-old Brad from rural Berks County moves into downtown Atlanta, Georgia, and all the culture shock that goes with that. You mentioned
Yeah,
growing up
yeah.
in the
Can
Pennsylvania.
we talk a little bit?
Yeah,
Can we talk a little bit about that? What was that like? Your parents drop you off, and there you are in a completely opposite scenario, situation, location than what you had known your whole life. How difficult was that transition for you?
it was it was a little tough, but I mean, school down there kept me so busy that I didn't think about it that much. It was it is the culture shock. You mentioned growing up Pennsylvania Dutch country, and I didn't even realize I was that Pennsylvania Dutch until I went down there. And you say things and people look at you weird, and um, Yeah, so it was a big difference, but I mean, just you're fully immersed when you're there. You really don't have much of a choice but to, just get in it and succeed. So yeah, it's also one of those things. You're a kid. You don't have money. It's not like I was going out doing cool stuff in downtown Atlanta. I was on campus pretty much most of the time doing school stuff, and yeah, you just kind of make it work. But yeah, a little different being in downtown Atlanta than middle of Leesburg Gardens.
So I've often heard this, and I've spent some time adjuncting at Penn State, which is a huge engineering school, which you already mentioned. And I've often heard this, but this statement, or is there some kind of weird love hate relationship between the various engineers, like types of engineers? At Penn State, there's always this: oh, he's a civil engineer, or he's a mechanical engineer, or a electrical engineer. And I never quite understood I understand sort of what the differences are between those fields, but there seems to be, at least in the Penn State community, I don't know if it's like that, was like that at Georgia Tech, that like one school of engineer was like higher on the ladder, so to speak, than another. Is that true, or do I totally misinterpret that?
No, it's definitely true that civil engineers are at the top of the heap. That is true.
Okay.
But it's probably more of like a sibling rivalry kind of thing. I don't think it's a hate thing. We're all engineers, and yeah, I think it's more like a sibling thing. It's a mutual respect, but um,
There we
yeah,
go. Okay.
engineering's a different thing. I think you gotta be a different person to get into engineering. Um, but yeah,
I
yeah.
have to, I have to ask you what you mean by that. So in your mind, what is that type of person?
I mean, I always grew up tinkering with stuff. My dad, he still tinkers. He's a tinkerer. He always had at least
Mhm.
four different cars he was working on, taking them apart, putting them back together. I think I did that with all my toys as a kid. Took them all apart, put them back together. So I don't know. It's just I don't know. I think your brain's just wired a little differently to be that type of problem solver and just a different perspective of the world of how things work. If I see a bridge, I kind of the physics of it play out in my mind of loads and transfers of stuff. So yeah, it's just a different perspective of the world, I think.
So now, so you go to school, you become a civil engineer. I guess I got to ask you this question too. So as you're going to school to be a civil engineer, you've talked a lot about bridges already, but I imagine that you have to learn all of the aspects of civil engineering. So road structure, bridges, tunnels, or do you specialize?
Yeah, you do specialize. So yeah, so bridges is
Oh,
what got
okay.
me into it, and then realized that structural engineers have to work harder than the other ones. So I kind of got away from that, but I took the transportation track, which is traffic engineering, roads, model traffic modeling, flow theory, all that fun stuff. So that's kind of the track I had, and probably like every kid in college who figures out what he wants to do. There's a professor along the way who kind of, you know, really helped me out figuring out what I want to do and led me there. So yeah, so I did specialize in transportation and somehow stuck with it. Still the field I'm in.
Right. So let's talk about that. It's a great transition, Brad. Thanks so much. So you graduated from Georgia Tech. Were there jobs? Is that a field where there are a lot of jobs out there, or do you really have to go out there and pound the pavement and get the job applications out there? What was that process like for you, and what was your first job right out of Georgia Tech? Professional job out of Georgia Tech.
Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely a field that has opportunity. It's a field that everyone relies on. Luckily, it'll never go away, and we'll always need bridges and utilities and all that boring stuff that makes daily life happen. But so Georgia Tech had a big co-op program where they really encourage you to do internships while you're in school. So while I was at Georgia Tech, I did my co-op actually with PennDOT, Pennsylvania DOT, in their Allentown office. So I actually did, I think, 3 semesters at PennDOT while I was in school. You alternate semester in school, semester co-oping. So that kind of opened the door for for that. Interesting enough, my very first co-op was, I think it started on January 2nd, 2000. So it was the first day of business day after Y2K. So, so I always remember that. Everyone kind of came to work like, hey, the computer turned on. I think it all worked out. so, so yeah, there was that. So then I graduate and had a job at PennDOT that I actually was at for 3 months. While I was at the end of college, I did apply for the job at Virginia DOT, which is where I'm at now. They have a good program. They call it an associate program where you go in for 2 years, kind of go around different divisions, units to kind of get a good breadth of stuff. So they had a really good program there. So I accepted that job, and within 3 months of being in Pennsylvania, I did it again. I picked up and said, "Hey, I'm just gonna move away," and and move down south to Virginia where I know nobody. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, so that was interesting, and again, it. I don't know. I've always had that spirit to kind of go and try some new things. Um, and I remember I got the job offer down here. It was like $3,000 more than I was making up there. I'm like, yeah, I'm rolling the money. Then I lived by myself and realized that maybe not the best immediate financial decision, but in the long run, it definitely worked out. I love living in Virginia. Met my wife here, have a family, some great friends, and just love the area I'm at.
That's awesome. So, I wanna talk a lot tonight, well, not a lot, but I wanna talk about your job because I think it's a job that, everybody takes advantage of what you do for a living, whether they're actually behind the wheel of a car or they're a passenger in a car. And I think most people have no idea about how any of this stuff works or happens. We just know to complain about it when a road is closed or or a road or a bridge is in bad shape. Then everybody's quick to complain about the Department of Transportation. But specifically with you and your job, um, how does it work? Like, do people come to you and say, "Hey, we need a new bridge," or "Hey, we're looking at doing this kind of a upgrade," and then it falls to your shoulders to actually do the planning? Or talk a little bit about how does the process work?
Yeah, so um, and I think it's really um, interesting you ask that because people don't generally understand and they do take it for granted. But you know, it really does in a huge way get down to local politics sometimes. Who you've elected, and it really is local decisions that decide how money is spent, whether it's in a metropolitan area, there's planning organizations and different things. So I see VDOT as being the stewards of the money. We certainly decide day-to-day maintenance things, what we got to fix, but for big stuff like that, it really comes down to local planning and priorities. So it is really important to be involved in local politics. If you're complaining about this kind of stuff, definitely local politics is where it's at because they really can make decisions and make things happen. So yeah, we really are the Department of Transportation, the stewards of taxpayer dollars, and that's kind of how it works.
So, what about you? Let's say you've done bridges, right? Like you personally have been in charge of projects where bridges were being built or designed.
Yeah, even further than that, I've kind of found this weird niche within within VDOT of being a tunnel person, which who would have ever thought that coming from Pennsylvania, where the only tunnels we have kind of we go through mountains, but down here we go underwater. So back in 2011, I got on a tunnel project here in Hampton Roads region of Virginia. Spent a couple years, through early design, construction, commissioning, all that good stuff, and then by chance would have it, we have a second tunnel project coming along that I'm working on now that really we're just getting started on, and will open in 2025. So I've got this huge 15 chunk 15-year chunk of my career that all of a sudden is dealing with tunnels. So you know, I'm amazed at the opportunities I've had, and probably more amazed with the people I work at and work with, and all the knowledge they bring to these things to build underwater tunnels here in Virginia. It's a pretty cool thing.
Did when you got back in 2011 when you first got in that project, did you I'm not saying that you're stupid or anything, but did you know anything
No,
about tunnels? Like
no,
had you been okay.
you're
So it was all like learning by the seat of your pants essentially? Is that how it was?
yeah. So in a way, but at the same time, you know, what I do now really is more on the project management side. So luckily for everyone around here, I'm not designing the tunnel. that would that would be bad. But so yeah, so we're really just managing the project and making sure that the people that are designing it are meeting schedules and doing different things and all the pieces fit together. I mean, the project I'm on now is it's mind bending, but it's a $3.8 billion project. So you know,
That's billion with a
with a
B.
B, so that's $3,800 million. So
Yeah. How
so
how how long is the tunnel?
8,000 feet. Yeah, but it's two. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
two parallel tunnels, 8,000 feet long, and 10 miles of interstate widening. So you know, a project like this, if you look at it like that, like $3.8 billion, like that's just insane. How are you ever going to do that? But when if you just start breaking it down into its smaller pieces and just do things one piece at a time and kind of look 3 steps ahead to make sure you're putting the pieces together in the right order and the right way, and all of a sudden it all comes together. So yeah, that's kind of what project management is. It's you almost you know the end. You got to work it backwards, and then keep looking 3 or 4 steps ahead to make sure that you're focusing on the right things and do the right things. So yeah, it's
So is a lot of your job from behind a desk, or do you get the opportunity to go out to the actual job sites and witness them, building these massive structures?
yeah, most of it's in the office, but I definitely do get a chance to go out and see things, and yeah, it's like it's young Brad's like dream come true. All the
Yeah.
tinkering did a little. You know, I had the little toy trucks that dug the dirt, and now we've got
Yeah.
massive dirt movers and machines that are excavating and doing things. So yeah, I've pretty much the coolest job I could ask for.
So you already mentioned about local politics and funding, but a project like what you're working on now, that's beyond the local level, I would imagine. Is that all that $3 billion? Is that all coming from federal funds or state funds, or probably maybe a mixture of both?
Yeah, so this it's a pretty amazing story there too. So here where I live in Virginia, the Hampton Roads area, it is very unique in that most cities you have are, there's a city and around it's the county or whatever government structure you have. But Hampton Roads, we call it the seven cities. It's actually seven contiguous independent cities that for a long time couldn't agree on anything. Each had their own individual project. So a bunch of years ago, the state actually passed through referendum the Transportation Accountability Commission, which collects a small 1% sales tax in the region, and a little piece of the gas tax goes straight to transportation. And then the region, those seven cities, finally came together and decided on 6 major projects. My project being one of them to fund. So this is a project that's the original tunnels that are out there were built in the 1950s and 1970s. So since then, just traffic, 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 tons of congestion. Everyone knew it needed to be done. No one could ever agree on how to do it. So finally, the region came together and said, you know what, let's just all get behind the big projects and make something happen, some big things happen rather than a lot of little things happen. So it really does get back to government to make these big projects go.
As someone not involved at all in this area, the one thing I always hear following politics as closely as I do is that every year sometime in the year, Congress gets real loud about it's time to invest in infrastructure. It's time to invest in infrastructure. And they always say we need new bridges, new roads, new tunnels, whatever. But then nothing ever comes out of it. A lot of years, nothing's ever passed. And then this federal money isn't spent. Is that something that you guys worry about, given that, or is this like this project you're working on? It's the money is guaranteed. It's been set aside. You don't have to worry about a year from now, all of a sudden, you need to do something and the money's not there, or is there a risk there with you guys because different people come into office, they change their mind, etc. Is that something that you guys have to worry about?
Yeah, not really, and that's the cool thing about what Virginia's doing is, like you said, there's been such a logjam at the federal level of agreeing on anything or allocating more money. Infrastructure, I'm sure everyone agrees, is really just getting further and further behind. Whether it's roads and bridges, whether it's transit. The U.S. is not really a model country for for infrastructure. So I think Virginia kind of took the bull by the horns, like I said, and set up these local funding authorities. So our project, even though it's $3.8 billion, is all but $200 million of it, which is federal money. The rest is state and local money, which is, if you look around the country, that's unprecedented. So it really sets us up to, control our own destiny, and to that point, you know, that our project's funded and we're going. So I'm thankful I don't have to worry for that about that. In addition to that, in 2025, when our project is done, and I have to wonder what I'm doing next, I'm pretty confident that we'll figure out another big project to do, and hopefully I can be
Oh.
part of that too. So yeah, so again, state, local politics, the decisions that your leaders are making can really make a difference in the direction you go. Some states are really struggling and falling behind. I think Virginia is a leader in transportation.
You brought up a point that I was going to ask you about. You're really great about helping me segue. This is awesome, Brad. You had mentioned that in your opinion, in your professional opinion, the United States, our infrastructure is not a model compared to other countries. If you could wave a magic wand, what would be some things that you would like to see us as a country doing better when it comes to infrastructure?
Yeah. So, the first thing you got to do is take care of what you have. Um, you know, if you build it and just keep trying to build more, you're never gonna keep up. So, um, you know, funding what we have to fix it. It costs way more to fix it when it's really broken than it does to just do, routine maintenance, just like your house. I mean, if you patch a roof once in a while, you can keep it alive for a long time. If you just wait till it fails, it's going to cost a lot of money. So, yeah, I think just giving the money to keep up we have. I think investing in alternative transportation would be good, whether it's rail, in the cities, bus service. I know our cities here where I live, we have bus service, but it really is not, you know, not a model or very useful for a lot of people. So, yeah, I mean, those are the kind of things that I think would be good. At one point, there was a Maiden Ford 2020 presidential bid. I believe I was the transportation would have been the transportation
You,
secretary.
you you would have been my secretary. Yes, you would have been my secretary of
From
transportation. That is
what I
correct. That is
understand,
correct.
Buttigieg just stole my spot, but
He
let's
did. He did. Yeah.
let's go for 2024. We can do this.
There we
I'm
go.
pretty sure that regardless of who you might have been for in this election, I think our ticket could have been pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Um, yeah, if only, right? Um, over the 15 plus years in your career, how has your job changed? Or what has changed the most about transportation, departments of transportation that you've worked for that you've really noticed over the course of the last, 10 years or so? What's changed the most?
Yeah, a lot of it's technology, which is probably everyone's job can say that, but I think we're really embrace technology changes. Um, even a big push just to go paperless, which was a huge, culture change. So, printing out thousand page plan sheets and paper all over the place. Now we've gone to tablets. It is push a button, pull up the plans, it's right there. Things like that. Modeling, 3D modeling has been huge in the industry. Instead of 2D plans on a set of paper, now you can do 3D models of a whole project just to make sure everything fits and there's no conflicts. That's a big movement in the industry. So yeah, technology, and you know, I'm one of the old timers there, and I admit that it's like you think you're tech savvy until some of this stuff starts, and then you're like, what button do I push? And it's definitely something you got to keep up with.
I can only imagine just something as small as drone technology, how that probably has been a huge help in these projects and I would think. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
No, you're exactly right. Um, you know, inspecting a bridge, you don't have to hang off the side of a bridge anymore to look at certain things. You can just send a drone to look at it. Before on projects, we'd have fixed wing aircraft fly aerial coverage just to get documentation of projects. Now we can send a drone up every day for the price of what it would take to do it, one time a year. So yeah,
Yeah.
anything like that's really helping. Even on our incident management side, we'll send drones to up in the air for accidents to kind of get a bird's eye view of things going on. So yeah, all those things, we're finding ways to use them.
What do you think the future holds for your profession and transportation maybe as a whole for the United States?
Yeah, I mean, we'll always be there. It's interesting. Obviously, everyone knows that autonomous vehicles, self-driving cars are the thing of the future. There's a lot of debate about when there will be, the market will really have them on the roads, the penetration, whether that's, some people think 10 years from now will be majority autonomous. Some people think it's further out, but, what does that mean for the industry? Does that mean, do we need to put up these huge overhead signs anymore if your car is just driving itself? Do we need to put as many stripes
Hmm.
on the road? Do we even need to build as many lanes? I mean, we design roads based on these theoretical formulas about traffic flow and how close cars can follow and all this stuff. Once you insert autonomous vehicles, that's all out the window. So, what does that mean for how we design roads? What we're designing today, is that really what we need in the future? So, you know, if I'm looking at 10 years from now, I think that is the big debate we have, is what does this mean for how we design roads, fund roads, all that stuff. So, just like the computer came along and this huge industry shift in a lot of things, I think the autonomous vehicle, whether we like it or not, is coming, and it's a weird thing. I mean, if you said, I got something here, it could save lives, people won't get in accidents anymore, all this stuff, you'd be like, oh yeah, sign me up. But I mean, I'm on team. I kind of like driving my car sometimes. So it's just
No,
it's
right.
one of these huge things that 40 years from now we'll look back and be like, people used to like drive cars really fast by themselves and run into things, really. But it's
Yeah.
just one of those things that's gonna change a lot of things. It's a matter of when. So I'm looking forward to when that happens.
That's so crazy. I've thought about, self-driving cars and all that stuff, but I never thought about how that would change roads. And you're right. It's really crazy when you listed all those things. Just the one that really sticks out in my mind is just the fact, do we need overhead signs anymore? And you think about, you drive on any interstate, especially in metro areas, urban areas, there are tons of road signs everywhere, overhangs, and all that. To imagine a world where those are gone is really kind of crazy to think
Yeah.
about. That's really
Yeah, I
neat.
mean, a big overhead sign structure, probably $200,000. Just just spitballing, and then you got maintenance costs over the life of them. So if you can start eliminating some of those things,
Sure.
it just it really changes the equation. So self-driving cars, get in
That's
on it
awesome.
now.
Um, yeah. Well, we've talked enough shop. Let's talk about other things. So,
Yes.
like I said earlier, in high school growing up, you were really active in band and music and sports. So, what are you doing these days for recreation when you're not dreaming about building bridges? What's Brad do for his free time now to relieve stress, or is music still part of your life? You still playing instruments, anything like that?
Yeah, so a lot of it's chasing two little kids around. That's for sure. So we got a 5 year old and an almost 2 year old. So um, they definitely keep me busy doing that. Music, I mess around with it. Got some guitars here and still play trumpet once in a while. And like to get the kids involved with that. My daughter and I started up the Christmas song band. We've had two performances this year already. Just to
That's awesome.
just to
That's
my
awesome.
wife and stepmom. But hey, you know, but yeah. I mean, I definitely inspired by I see you and your kids do the music thing together. Dustin and his kids, and there's just something magical about it. Getting them involved in music. So yeah, I definitely tinker in it when I can.
That's awesome. It is one of the great joys that I've had so far since having children. Besides having kids and everything that comes with it, that both of them love music has been a huge win so far for me. And I'm sure, given your music background, I'm sure that both of your children will take to it and probably be natural talents as well. I'm sure. So I expect to see a video of this Christmas band at some point, at least one performance for sure, Brad.
Okay, yeah, we need to practice more. My daughter is putting me to shame so far. She knows all the words, and I'm missing some notes, so we'll work on that.
Sounds good. Sounds good. One thing I did want to ask you before I get into the end of the interview here was so now you've lived in the South, um geez, probably as long as you lived in the North. When you think about, we're 40 now and you went down there after high school. What about the South do you really, really like?
So I really like the weather.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I've lost all my cold blood that my Pennsylvania survival instincts. But yeah, the weather and the area. I mean, where I live in Hampton Roads, I physically live in Virginia Beach, so we're close to the beach. There's water everywhere down here. I literally live across the street from the Navy base, so there's jets screaming by, which is just I think is the coolest thing in the world. And this area it's a conglomerate of a lot of things because of the Navy. That a lot of people come from a lot of different places. So yeah, there's a lot of things here that still can remind me of home. Sometime there's two Philly cheesesteak shops nearby. That's a good thing.
Ooh,
So there's little things like that.
sure.
I like it down here.
That's good. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Brad, I end all of my interviews the same way with 10 quick questions. And I'm curious to hear your answers for these. Some of these, I think I know what you're going to say, but then people always surprise me because I think they're going to say one thing and then they say something totally different.
All
So,
right, all
are
right.
you ready? All right, here we go. Number one,
Yes,
what is your morning drink of choice?
coffee,
And how do you take your coffee?
black, straight out of the pot. Yeah. Who doesn't say coffee? I heard.
Straight fr-
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
No, I've had people not. I mean, that's the majority answer, but there have been people that have said other things, but that's okay.
yeah.
Number two, this one's what I'm really curious about.
Okay.
What is a go-to musical group for you?
Go-to musical group. So, um, probably say it's a band called the Slackers. A ska band out of New York. Been doing it forever, so anytime I'm just open up Spotify, I need to listen to something. They're probably the go-to, and I've been listening to them since. since high school, really. Probably if you look at
Uh
my
huh.
my listening habits, they probably changed very little since high school. Haven't evolved much in the
Okay.
music sense. Other than that, I've opened up a little bit, and a lot of the bands I listen to have kind of gotten you know spread out into sort of like the folky stuff that a couple punk bands I've been listening to. The lead singer of Avail, Tim Berry. Now he's just him and an acoustic guitar. He's from Richmond. He's doing awesome stuff. So listening to a lot of that stuff. But yeah, I listen to a lot of different things. But yeah, so the Slackers. That's one that's been a constant for a bunch of years, and they're definitely the go-to.
All right, everybody, go out and find the Slackers and fill your ears with their stuff. That sounds good.
Yeah,
Number three, what's a movie that you can watch over and over again and it never gets old?
that's easy. Office Space. I could probably,
Yes.
could probably quote
Uh,
that from beginning to end, and that's
I
another one
I
that
think if we sat
yeah that movie is so timeless. Like I don't even know how many years ago it was made, but they could make that today, and it just the mundane of office life. That's a constant that'll never change. You can relate to so many things in there. So Office Space.
great answer, great answer. What is the last thing that you read?
Last thing I read. Um, so two answers. Good night construction site. I think I read that to my son tonight. And as far as a real book, reading the new David Sedaris book.
Oh, so am I. So
Nice.
am I.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Oh,
obviously a
it's
collection of stuff you've already read, but it's still, never gets old. And you know,
no, I am with you.
one,
He is.
one of the so
I have all of his.
yeah, yeah. So one of the
No, go ahead.
two
Go
one
ahead.
of the two authors I can think of that no matter what, you cannot anytime you read their stuff, you read it in his voice. There's like no way to not hear him telling those stories when you read this stuff. And the other person is Anthony Bourdain. If you read Anthony Bourdain stuff, like
Yes.
that voice is just
Yes.
that's the only
Yes.
way to read those books.
I agree. I agree. Both are people that I really, really appreciate. Like I have all of David Sedaris' books. I've seen him live 3 times, I think now. And if you haven't had the opportunity to do that, and he's once COVID's over and he's touring again, you have to go to one of his live readings. It is phenomenal.
Yep,
He's so
that'd
good.
be awesome.
Oh man. All right, number 5. What is your favorite pizza topping?
Pizza topping. So maybe pizza style, a collection of toppings, but I like a good Hawaiian pizza. Some
Oh
maybe
man,
a
the
bacon,
controversial
pineapple. No,
answer.
it's not. No, that's a good answer.
No,
you know, you got your salty, your sweet. You know,
yep.
you got it all there. That's a good
No,
pizza.
I like pineapple pizza, and whenever we talk about that in class, I get so much ridicule from my students because it's such a knee jerk reaction. Oh, that's so stupid. That's not a pizza. But
Yeah,
I always tell them, if you've never tried it, you're missing out. You're
exactly
missing
right.
out.
If you say that, you haven't tried it.
That's right. That's right. All right. So this one might be a give me given where you live right now. But number 6, do you prefer laying on the beach or going for a hike?
Beach. All day, every
Yeah,
day.
I
If I
figured.
didn't have to work, I would
All
be
day,
I
every
would
day.
I would be on the beach every day. Yeah. So we live about 10 minutes from the beach. We got the whole setup down. We load up the cart. We go out there with the family. We put up the canopy. We got it all down. So yeah, we love us.
That's
We love us
awesome.
some beach.
That's awesome. Number 7, you have invited me over for dinner. What are you making?
What am I making? Um. So I'll probably staying away from the obvious here. I'm not going to make you any Pennsylvania Dutch stuff because I think
Okay.
you can probably do that better yourself. Although I have some of my Nana's recipe. We get some sausage stew going once in a while, and
Oh,
when I cook is
I love that. Oh
my
yes.
wife's favorite food now is red beet eggs. I introduced those to her.
Oh,
She's all about those.
that's
So
that's
so what
awesome.
would I make? So my go-to lately has been smoked chicken wings.
Okay.
I was rocking those all summer. The new house and the grill. So a little bit of so the neighbor gave me some apple wood from the back of her yard. So I've been smoking with apple wood. Yeah, I've
Uh-huh.
been rocking some chicken wings. So yeah,
That sounds good. And
I'm
we'll
making
have
some
some
smoked
cold
wings.
beers, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Does just that this out of curiosity, does your area where you live, is there a pretty good craft beer scene there?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. We've got yeah. There's a lot going on here. Even where I live, within a 5 mile radius, I can probably get to about 4 or 5 different breweries, and the area's got some really good ones. There's a huge scene here, and I am immersed
That's
in
awesome.
it.
Sounds good.
Responsibly
What is
immersed.
a dream responsibly, of course,
Yes.
responsibly immersed. What is a dream vacation destination of yours?
Well, um, honestly, you know, uh, and your listeners probably don't know, but we went to Germany together in high school. So
We
we
did, yeah.
just graduated, right? Yes, we were 18, um, and let loose in a European country. So we had an awesome time, but I think I would have a different perspective of it if I went back today. So I would definitely
Mhm.
like to go back there. You know, and in the more realistic one, one thing I've thought a lot of lately is, you know, it would be awesome for our whole group to get back together somewhere and watch our kids play together. I don't we haven't really gotten to do that yet, but to watch our kids hang out, to sit there, watch them play, I think that would be, I've kind of daydreamed about that probably the last few months, being stuck, inside with all this COVID stuff, not being able to go anywhere. So yeah, I hope when this is all over, we need to get the gang back together and
I uh, I
let our
have
kids
talked
get
about
at
that
it.
very idea with yes, I've talked about that very idea with some of our other friends, and we are all in agreement that that is something we would love to see happen at some point for sure. That's awesome.
Yes,
Yeah, and I don't care where that is, but we'll make it happen at some point. I'm sure.
yes.
Um, Question number 9: what is something you're afraid of?
Afraid of. Um, yeah, I don't know if this is it's not. Or I know it's not irrational, but maybe I have more of a fear than most people. But I am dreading the day that my kids get a driver's license. you know, I, my wife will tell you. Even my daughter, just driving like the Barbie Hot Wheels in the backyard, I get anxious just watching her do that. Like, be careful, look out, don't do that. So I can only imagine when it's the real thing. So that's going to be a rough one for me, is watching my kids get a driver's license.
That's a great answer.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know already that my son is has no fear whatsoever, and I can only imagine. I don't think that's going to change. So by the time that he's 16, it's going to be yeah. I think that's going to be a rough one for me
yeah.
too.
I mean,
We'll
I
see.
remember 16-year-old me, and I, based on that, a 16-year-old should never get a driver's license.
That's great. All right, last question, number 10. Now, it sounds like you have your dream job. You were a kid, you saw a bridge, you're like, I want to build one of those one day, and now you're doing that. But I'm going to ask anyway, what job, other than one that you have, is or would be a dream job for you?
Okay, so with no regard for having a family, I think I would love to be like a chef. you know, not like a celebrity chef, but like, a in the weeds chef, just going in every night, getting it done. Um, yeah, so that's one. Obviously, that doesn't really help out the family situation a whole lot, but that
Yeah.
or like stand up comedian, that would be a cool one too. Just kind of getting in the weeds and doing that. I watch documentaries and stuff and follow comedians, and there's something about the process that I like there. Crafting a joke, finding the beat, all that stuff. Um, I don't know if I'd be any good at it, but that's another one. If I never had a family to worry about, just kind of go for it. Yeah, that'd be fun to try sometime. So, um,
Yeah, those are great
that's
answers.
those two answers. Hopefully, I don't get disqualified.
No,
Uh,
you are not
whew,
disqualified. They're both great. I could honestly see you doing both of those things. So I think that's awesome.
yeah.
That's really awesome.
So,
Well, Brad, it has. Oh, go ahead. I'm
so
sorry.
I get to ask you any questions?
No one's. Sure. No one's ever done that. Go
So,
ahead. Yeah,
so
fine.
my big question, you know, you're obviously a teacher. I always wonder, do you see in your students us from high school sometimes? Like, is there a Brad in your class? Is
Oh,
there a Dustin? Is there a Monica?
I think I can speak for probably every teacher I know, and that the answer is absolutely yes. And sometimes, uh, in I'll be going into my 20th year of teaching here soon. And in those 20 years, I have had all of us. When I think of our group of friends, and also all of those kids that we went to school with that were not friends of ours, I've had a lot of them too. Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes it's easy in the sense that it's a kid that acts a certain way, and you'd be like, "Oh man, that's Dustin Shirk right there." And I'll drop names here, and I don't care. I'm not going to embarrass anybody. Or you have a student with a certain type of personality and you say, oh man, that student really reminds me of Monica Stout. And then you'll have kids that it's the way they talk, the way they move sometimes, or the things that they're interested in. Whenever I get a kid that comes in, and this happens not so much anymore, but earlier in my career, I'd have a student every now and then that was really into ska music. And they would be so different from everybody else in the class because other kids were like, no one's listening to that, blah, blah, blah. But you can have conversations with them, and I could see a Nate Stimmel there, or a Brad Weidenhammer, or an Alex Salks. And but then in the same sense, I've had students that have been extremely difficult because of behavioral issues or just because of their personalities. And then I can often see myself going back to some of those kids that we grew up with that were doing those same types of behaviors to the teachers that we had at the time. And there's certain things you just can't shake from your memory. And you're like, man, that kid really reminds me of X. Um, so yeah, the answer is absolutely yes. I have seen many of us, our group of friends, in students over the years that have come and gone through my classroom. And what I also find is that what's really awkward, or not awkward, but weird, is I've found colleagues of mine over the years that remind me of teachers that we had growing up.
Yeah.
And I might think to myself, man, this guy I'm working with right now, that guy is totally Mr. Schreiner, or that guy is totally Mrs. Braun, or this teacher's Mrs. Braun. So I also see that, and so I never thought I'd experience that, but I've had colleagues where I see former teachers of mine from when I was a kid in those people too. So yeah, the answer is absolutely yes.
That's great. Yeah.
So
So
yeah.
I mean, what you're doing is obviously a great thing. You asked me about things we do that impact people's lives, and obviously what you're doing, you're impacting kids' lives every day. I look back to some of our teachers. One, we had a common German teacher, obviously, who I think made a big impact on both of us for different reasons. You know, I think he taught us a lot, and I don't hardly remember any German, so most of it was not even German, but some of the things that he talked to us about, and he obviously had a family, and he kind of saw all that stuff, and really made an impact even beyond. the classroom. So I know for sure that you have that same impact on a lot of people too. So um,
Well,
props to everything you do and all the teachers out there, especially in times like this
oh,
when things are really really crazy.
yeah. Yeah, well, I thank you so much for those kind words. But yeah, teaching right now and last year and this year has been nothing like what I've ever have ever done in my life, and hopefully never will have to do it again in the future. We'll just have to wait and see. But you talk about how how much the your profession has changed over the last 15 years. Teaching has drastically changed too from when I first came out of college to where I am now, for a lot of reasons. But we just have to, just like you, we just keep adapting to the situation, and we hopefully can continue to do the good things that we're doing, whether it's you designing tunnels and bridges and making people's commutes better, or me just trying to get a kid to understand that there are consequences to the actions that they take in life. So yeah, it's a tough career, but it's a rewarding career, that's for sure. And I'm sure that you probably say the same thing about the profession that you're in.
Yep, we're changing the world one day at a time. So if,
There we go.
anyone's listening to this, they made it to 2021. So full speed ahead. We got this.
That's right. Brad, it has been an absolute pleasure and joy to talk to you today and reconnect. And we don't talk often enough but that's not a complaint. It's just the way life is. Young kids, it's tough. But I'm so glad that you agreed to come on the show. And it was great conversation. I learned a lot, and that's what I always like about these episodes. I learn a lot from my friends, that stuff I don't know about them, and I'm always so intrigued to talk about what they do for a living. Because like you said earlier, if I think back to the Brad that I grew up with, uh, and or the you had your driver's license before me, so I rode with you in your car when you were 16, and I think back to that Brad, and now thinking that he's in charge of these multi-billion-dollar projects of roads and bridges, it totally blows my mind in a great way, in an awesome way, of course. Uh, but thanks for coming on the show so much, Brad. I really appreciate it, and thank you for all the work that you do. And hopefully, we'll be able to talk again soon.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, it's still snowing. Let's get in off the porch.
Yeah, how about that? Sounds good. Well, thank you everyone for listening to Doug's Front Porch, a conversational podcast with your host, Doug Maidenford. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give a review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Follow along on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just look for @Doug's Front Porch. And please feel free to tell all of your friends about the show, and I'll see you all next time on my front porch.